Hello, hello, ladies and gents, gays and theys. Welcome to another episode of Tacoma Tea. I know I said maybe on my calendar that I was going to do this yesterday, but things happen. Today we got kiddos home from school, and so we're still braving this, and we're going to see how this goes. They might pop in and say hi. We'll see. So this is just a time for me to get on and talk to you guys about kind of what's happened in this week in Tacoma, at least in my world. So feel free to chime in and ask questions or comments or whatever comes up during this time. Little disclaimer, the live stream reflects my personal opinions only, and nothing I say should be considered an official statement or position of the City of Tacoma or the City Council as a body. So first thing I will kind of go into is what happened this week at the council meeting. It was a very, I'd say charged, but very impassionate council meeting for, I think, all of the right reasons. There's a lot happening right now in our neighborhoods and in neighborhoods around the world or in the United States that is not is disturbing, to say the least. And so, I think a lot of folks showed up at our council meeting this week just needing to be heard, because most of us, when it comes to what's going on with our federal government, don't condone it and don't feel heard that this is not something that we want. So I was really happily surprised by our new mayor, Mayor Anders Ibsen, being able to kind of set the stage for how the council is feeling around what's happening before folks came up and did public comment. So I felt like the city put out some information that maybe some folks hadn't heard yet about what we're doing and what we can do as a city when it comes to the federal violence that's happening right now. I will just replay for those who didn't weren't able to make the meeting what our interim city manager, Hyun Kim, said about what the city is doing right now.
You are asking for an update. From a staff perspective, I do want to just candidly speak to the fact that we have much to do to communicate with our public as far as the actions upon which this council has taken actions with our limited authority. That's not to say that there are not actions that we can continue to take on. I just wanted to give you an update on a few resolutions, as well as I will start from an update on a legal action that we have joined. The City of Tacoma continues to look for ways within our limited authority to address federal actions that have concerned many of our constituents, our residents or visitors here in the City of Tacoma. Recently, the City of Tacoma has joined a lawsuit filed by the State of California. This case is Newsom v. Trump. The lawsuit, an amicus brief, asserts that the President, the Secretary of Defense, the Department of Defense acted unlawfully by deploying National Guard and Marines, U.S. Marines, to the city of Los Angeles in response to riots, perceived riots, against ICE enforcement actions. It is the city's position that the President's actions are unprecedented and left unchecked could lead to federalized national police force with a political agenda. We believe this is a significant threat to the state, our local autonomy, which is why the City of Tacoma has joined this lawsuit. About a year ago, the City Council passed Resolution 41627. This is a policy alignment in terms of ensuring that federal immigration activities are not taken up by the city and, more importantly, our Tacoma Police Department. And I am proud to share with you that we adhere to the law, state law, to keep Washington working. We are not deputized for federal immigration activities. Our local police department, Tacoma Police Department, does an admirable job every day, and we are adhering to the fact that we are for public safety, and that is what we're trying to do. Additionally, another update on a recent resolution that was passed in the last 90 days, Resolution 41817. This was a pointed resolution asking staff to look towards ways in which we can identify city parcels for potential signage for public properties to not be used for the purposes of federal immigration enforcement, mobilization, activation. And I want to share this candidly from the standpoint of what the city staff is doing in support of the council's directive. We are watching and monitoring additional legal actions that are taking place in this country, in our great country. and we are watching upon which we are most likely going to be joining additional legal actions. And I want to share and preface this to our public that's listening and that's in the audience today. Adjudicating the right of local government when it comes to federal actions, the use of city property, will most likely fall to the courts. And we must stand ready, and staff is prepared, and our city attorney and his office is standing ready to defend our potential actions as we bring this back to you.
So that's kind of a breakdown of what the city has been able to do, and there's a commitment to, there's sometimes we meet kind of behind the scenes, and the things that we talk about to try and keep the city safe that maybe we can't talk about in the public. Um, and we are keeping, I'm happy to hear that our legal department is keeping track of what other cities are doing. There's stuff that's being brought forth in Chicago around the uh, the legality of all of these actions. And so we're watching and seeing if Chicago can basically win their case, um, and make decisions from there. So as Hyun was talking about in that video, we are watching what things we can do. And I there was a lot of frustration, as I mentioned, in the public comment section and in the community forum about what you guys should be doing more. We absolutely feel that. We are human. We are trying to do what's in the power of the city to do. But as I reiterated in my comments, um, after public comment and when we put forward a statement and a new resolution, uh, the city government's not going to have the power to do all the things, but community has the power to do all the things. When our systems are not yet set up to protect us, we still have each other. And there's ways that we need to make sure that we're not looking to maybe certain aspects of a government to handle things that it can't yet. Um, Not that it shouldn't, but it's just not designed that way. And so, I'm all about community organizing and neighborhood organizing. How do we help make sure we're there for our neighbors? Um, One thing that we're doing in my neighborhood, there was an alert that went out that ICE was up in Hilltop knocking on doors, and I wouldn't have known this unless I was in a group chat with my neighbors, and they sent the message out as a heads up, keep a lookout. And we have folks that were ready to go. They're like, did they say what street it's on? Let's go. We didn't get much more information than that, but that is an example of the things that we can do. And again, the city is going to continue to look for what it's in their power to do in order to address these things. But also, I tried to find it, but I couldn't for the life of me. Councilmember Diaz mentioned, there's lots of state bills that have a little bit more power than what we have at the city. So the legislature is meeting right now and talking about those bills in committees. And now is the time to weigh in on those things so that things can change in our state law that affects our city, Tacoma. But the other thing that happened Tuesday night was I signed into my first joint council statement, and I was happy to do so, happy to work on that with a couple of my fellow council members, and happy that all my fellow council members signed on to that. And then I also co-sponsored my first resolution. Things are going quick. So again, for those who weren't able to make it on Tuesday, I will play a video of Councilmember Sadalgay reading that statement out.
The City Council condemned the senseless killing of Renee Good in Minneapolis last week. We extend our deepest condolences to her family and community. Over the last year, the federal administration has continued to promote actions and policies that sow fear and anxiety in our communities. This fear has become so pervasive that many of our neighbors now share their concerns only in whispers, afraid that speaking out or even being seen could put their families at risk. The shooting of Miss Good is the latest consequence of U.S. Immigration and Custom Enforcement's reckless tactics. We're deeply alarmed by reports documenting the far-reaching damage of these operations, including the tragic accounts of individuals who have died while in federal custody. Independent media investigations, including recent data published by ProPublica, indicate that these tactics have resulted in wrongful detainment and mistreatment for over 170 U.S. citizens. And combined with reports of deaths in ICE custody, this statistic underscores a chaotic approach to enforcement that endangers everyone, regardless of immigration status. Whenever safe and feasible, the City of Tacoma's use of force policies require de-escalation that is available and appropriate and mandates warnings before the discharge of a weapon. We hold our police officers to these higher standards because the City of Tacoma is committed to protecting the rights and welfare of its residents. Everyone in Tacoma deserves to live safely, with dignity, and without fear. A year ago, that commitment guided the Tacoma City Council to adopt Resolution 41627, a City of Tacoma policy aligned with the state's Keep Washington Working Act. The Washington State Keep Washington Working Act restricts how law enforcement can cooperate with federal immigration enforcement. And this resolution further prohibits all other city resources from being used to assist federal immigration enforcement with civil immigration duties when not required to do so by state or federal law or in response to a lawfully issued court order. We deepened that commitment with the passage of Resolution 41817, directing the city manager to clarify the policies governing the use of city-owned properties is about ensuring that our public assets remain dedicated to the public function for which they were established. Tacoma is a city that champions and celebrates diversity. Our strength comes from standing up for and in solidarity with our neighbors, no matter their identity, race, religion, immigration status, or national origin. Tacoma will continue to work within its legal authority to defend democracy and protect due process rights for every resident. As a council, we will continue to expand protections for immigrants and refugees who call Tacoma home, and everyone seeking their unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness here in the future.
Say unalienable 5 times fast. Yeah, so that is a commitment from the council as a whole that we are going to do everything that's in our power to help our neighbors. And again, our power is not the power, right? It's one arm that we can use to combat what's happening, the injustices that are happening. But we need to make sure we are exercising all of those mechanisms that are available to us, including our pairing up with our neighbors, including writing our state representatives and those that represent us on the U.S. Senate. That is where the rubber meets the road. They are the ones who can chime in on what is actually happening at the federal level. What we can do on the local level and at the state level is try and influence what those U.S. senators are doing and allowing or not allowing at the federal level. So there's that. Okay, so moving on from that, a little bit about what I did this week. It's apart from the council meeting. I met with Run on Climate. I rode the Link. My car was out of commission, and so I had a little refresher in how our public transportation works and does not work. I live pretty close to the Link, and so I was really fortunate to have that to get around town. And I used the bus, and I used Uber and that, and Lyft, and so. Yeah, it kind of gave me an understanding of, the pros, I guess, of our transit. We have, I think we're fortunate to have something like the Link, but then also, it used to be where you'd ask for an Uber or a Lyft, and it would take at least 10 minutes to find one. But now it's kind of like this, they come right away. So I was happy to learn that, but I know we have a lot more work to do. There was one bus that just drove right past me when I was at the bus stop. So I was a little late for my next appointment, but so yeah, more work to be done. But this week I also attended 2 policing accountability coalitions. I attended my first council committee meetings, and I did post a little bit more about what that all entails to my socials. If you have questions about that, happy to answer them. I met three different department heads. So I learned about our planning and development services at the city, the Center for Strategic Priorities, and our media and communications. And then I also met with the Northwest Cooperative Development Center, along with Washingtonians for Public Banking. This all goes hand in hand into understanding what all of our options are to empower our residents. And to me, ownership equals empowerment. And so, what can we do to explore maybe some less conventional but highly tested methods in order to get folks into a housing ownership and business ownership and ownership of what's happening with their money when it comes to our banking. So more to come with those things in the future. But the other thing that's kind of floating around is, there was some idiocracy, I would say, that happened with our sheriff and his wanting to overreach with what his role is and what he can and cannot do, and what the law says he can and cannot do. And so I know that there's lots of folks who are wanting to speak up and say something about that. And there are opportunities coming up. He will be in Tacoma. I did post that again on my socials. And then he will also be visiting different libraries around Pierce County. If you have something that you're wanting to say to him. And the other thing that came up was, on February 1st, Trump threatening that any state that has a sanctuary city in it is going to lose federal funding. And so while Tacoma, we tried to kind of stay under the radar and keep everyone safe by being a welcoming city, while basically taking on all of the roles and responsibilities of a sanctuary city. Since we are in Washington State with other sanctuary cities, we may feel the brunt of that as well. And so know that those are conversations that we are having too about, what can we do to safeguard ourselves and make Tacoma more resilient against these things if this does happen. I'm going to go back to the tried and true answer though, where, again, the city can only do so much, but we have to make sure we are there for each other. And to me, it's my job to help orchestrate that and organize that, and make sure that people know where resources are and have access to the things that the information that they need. And I'm just gonna kind of veer off a little bit about because today is MLK Day. Happy MLK Day to everyone. I've been going to a couple different events around Tacoma, and my cup gets full when I hear a lot of the different discussions and a lot of the talks that happen about MLK. And he is obviously somebody that I personally look up to. And I think that there's a lot of the time there's part of his story that gets told. And it's a lot of the time the same part of his story that gets told, but there's more to it that maybe folks aren't as familiar with, kind of what he started to talk about towards the end of his life, which 39, y'all, he died when he was 39. I'm 39 now. That's crazy to me, how much he accomplished in his lifetime. MC, yourself available public. Thank you so much. I try. I'm going to keep trying. But to that end, I wanted to, I'm pretty much done with the updates besides there's no city council meeting this week coming up. I did post a couple of other opportunities that you can talk to me and we can get together and chat on my socials as well. So if you can make one of those, that would be awesome. I'd love to see you. But I am going to now just kind of play one of my favorite speeches from Martin Luther King. It's titled "The Three Evils of Society" speech, and he gave it in 1967 at the National Conference on New Politics in Chicago. And in it, he speaks about what he calls the triple evils of war, racism, and poverty. I'm not going to play the whole thing, and I did speed it up, so I'm trying. I think it's around 14 or 15 minutes. So feel free to stick around and watch. And if you have comments, I'd love to know what you thought about it. All right, here we go.
Achievement in hypocrisy must go to those staunch Republicans and Democrats of the Midwest and West who were given land by our government when they came here as immigrants from Europe. They were given education through the land-grant colleges. They were provided with agricultural agents to keep them abreast of farming trends. They were granted low-interest loans to aid in the mechanization of their farms. And now that they have succeeded in becoming successful, they are paid not to farm. And these are the same people who now say to black people whose ancestors were brought to this country in chains and who were emancipated in 1863 without being given land to cultivate or bread to eat, that they must pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. What they truly advocate is socialism for the rich and capitalism for the poor. I wish that I could say that this is just a passing phase in the cycle of our nation's life. Certainly times of war, times of reaction throughout the society. But I suspect that we are now experiencing the coming to the surface of a triple-pronged sickness that has been lurking within our body politic from its very beginning. That is the sickness of racism, excessive materialism, and militarism. Not only is this our nation's dilemma, it is the plague of Western civilization. As early as 1906, W.E.B. Du Bois prophesied that the problem of the 20th century will be the problem of the color line. Now, as we stand two-thirds into this crucial period of history, we know full well that racism is still that hound of hell which dogs the tracks of our civilization. Ever since the birth of our nation, white America has had a schizophrenic personality on the question of race. She has been torn between selves, a self in which she proudly professed the great principles of democracy and a self in which she madly practiced the antithesis of democracy. And this tragic duality has produced a strange indecisiveness and ambivalence toward the Negro, causing America to take a step backward simultaneously with every step forward on the question of racial justice, to be at once attracted to the Negro and repelled by him, to love and to hate him. And there has never been a solid, unified, and determined thrust to make justice a reality for Afro-Americans. The step backward has a new name today. It is called the white backlash. But the white backlash is nothing new. It is the surfacing of old prejudices, hostilities, and ambivalences that have always been there. It was caused neither by the cry of black power, nor by the unfortunate recent wave of riots in our cities. The white backlash of today is rooted in the same problem that has characterized America ever since a black man landed in chains on the shores of this nation. This does not imply that all white Americans are racist. Far from it. Many white people have, through a deep moral compulsion, fought long and hard for racial justice. Nor does it mean that America has made no progress in her attempt to cure the body politic of the disease of racism, or that the dogma of racism has not been considerably modified in recent years. However, for the good of America, it is necessary to refute the idea that the dominant ideology in our country, even today, is freedom and equality, while racism is just an occasional departure from the norm on the part of a few bigoted extremists. Racism can well be that corrosive evil that would bring down the curtain on Western civilization. Arnold Toynbee has said that some 26 civilizations have risen upon the face of the earth. Almost all of them have descended into the junk heaps of destruction. The decline and fall of these civilizations, according to Toynbee, was not caused by external invasions, but by internal decay. They failed to respond creatively to the challenges impinging upon them. If America does not respond creatively to the challenge to banish racism, some future historian will have to say that a great civilization died because it lacked the soul and commitment to make justice a reality for all men. The second aspect of our afflicted society is extreme materialism. An Asian writer has portrayed our dilemma in candid terms. He says, you call your 1,000 material devices labor-saving machinery, yet you are forever busy. With the multiplying of your machinery, you grow increasingly fatigued, anxious, nervous, dissatisfied. Whatever you have, you want more. And wherever you are, you want to go somewhere else. Your devices are neither time-saving nor soul-saving machinery. There are so many sharp spurs which urge you on to invent more machinery and to do more business. This tells us something about our civilization that cannot be cast aside as a prejudiced charge by an Eastern thinker who is jealous of Western prosperity. We cannot escape the indictment. This does not mean that we must turn back the clock of scientific progress. No one can overlook the wonders that science has wrought for our lives. The automobile will not abdicate in favor of the horse and buggy, of the train in favor of the stagecoach, of the tractor in favor of the hand plow, of the scientific method in favor of ignorance and superstition. But our moral lag must be redeemed. When scientific power outruns moral power, we end up with guided missiles and misguided men. When we foolishly maximize the minimum and minimize the maximum, we sign the warrant for our own day of doom. It is this moral lag in our thing-oriented society that blinds us to the human realities around us and encourages us in the greed and exploitation which create the sector of poverty in the midst of wealth. Again, we have deluded ourselves into believing the myth that capitalism grew and prospered out of the Protestant ethic of hard work and sacrifice. The fact is that capitalism was built on the exploitation and suffering of black slaves. And continues to thrive on the exploitation of the poor, both black and white, both here and abroad. If Negroes and poor whites do not participate in the free flow of wealth within our economy, they will forever be poor, giving their energy, their talents, and their limited funds to the consumer market, but reaping few benefits and services in return. The way to end poverty is to end the exploitation of the poor, ensure them a fair share of the government services and the nation's resources. I proposed recently that a national agency be established to provide employment for everyone needing it. Nothing is more socially inexcusable than unemployment in this age. In the 30s, when the nation was bankrupt, it instituted such an agency, the WPA. In the present conditions of a nation glutted with resources, it is barbarous to condemn people desiring work to soul-sapping inactivity and poverty. I am convinced that even this one massive act of concern would do more than all the state police and armies of the nation to quell riots and still hatreds. The tragedy is that our materialistic culture does not possess the statesmanship necessary to do it. Victor Hugo could have been thinking of 20th century America when he wrote, "There's always more misery among the lower classes than there is humanity in the higher classes." The time has come for America to face the inevitable choice between materialism and humanism. We must devote at least as much to our children's education and the health of the poor as we do to the care of our automobiles and the building of beautiful, impressive hotels. We must also realize that the problems of racial injustice and economic injustice cannot be solved without a radical redistribution of political and economic power. We must further recognize that the ghetto is a domestic colony. Black people must develop programs that will aid in the transfer of power and wealth into the hands of residents of the ghetto so that they may in reality control their own destinies. This is the meaning of new politics. People of goodwill in the larger community must support the black man in this effort. The final phase of our national sickness is the disease of militarism. Nothing more clearly demonstrates our nation's abuse of military power than our tragic adventure in Vietnam. This war has played havoc with the destiny of the entire world. It has torn up the Geneva Agreement. It has seriously impaired the United Nations. It has exacerbated the hatred between continents and, worse still, between races. It has frustrated our development at home, telling our own underprivileged citizens that we place insatiable military demands above their most critical needs. It has greatly contributed to the forces of reaction in America and strengthened the military-industrial complex. And it has practically destroyed Vietnam and left thousands of American and Vietnamese youth maimed and mutilated and exposed the whole world to the risk of nuclear warfare. Above all, the war in Vietnam has revealed what Senator Fulbright calls our nation's arrogance of power. We are arrogant in professing to be concerned about the freedom of foreign nations while not setting our own house in order. Many of our senators and congressmen vote joyously to appropriate billions of dollars for the war in Vietnam. And many of these same senators and congressmen vote loudly against a fair housing bill to make it possible for a Negro veteran of Vietnam to purchase a decent home. We arm Negro soldiers to kill on foreign battlefields, but offer little protection for their relatives from beatings and killings in our own South. We are willing to make the Negro 100% of a citizen in warfare, but reduce him to 50% of a citizen on American soil. No war in our nation's history has ever been so violative of our conscience, our natural national interests, and so destructive of our moral standing before the world. No enemy has ever been able to cause such damage to us as we inflict upon ourselves. The inexorable decay of our urban centers has flared into terrifying domestic conflict as the pursuit of foreign war absorbs our wealth and energy. Squalor and poverty scar our cities as our military might destroys cities in a far-off land to support oligarchy to intervene in domestic conflict. The president who cherishes consensus for peace has intensified the war. In answer to a cry to stop the war, it has brought tauntingly to 1 minute's flying time from China to a moment before the midnight of world conflagration. We are offered a tax for war instead of a plan for peace. Men of reason should no longer debate the merits of war or means of financing war. They should end the war and restore sanity and humanity to American policy. And if the will of the people continues to be unheeded, all men of goodwill must create a situation in which the 1967-68 elections are made a referendum on the wall. The American people... The American people must have an opportunity to vote into oblivion those who cannot detach themselves from militarism, and those who lead us... And so we are here because we believe, we hope, we pray that something new might emerge in the political life of this nation, which will produce a new man, new structures and institutions, and a new life for mankind. I am convinced that this new life will not emerge until our nation undergoes a radical revolution of values. When machines and computers, profit motives and property rights are considered more important than people, the giant triplets of racism, economic exploitation and militarism are incapable of being conquered. A civilization can flounder as readily in the face of moral bankruptcy as it can through financial bankruptcy. A true revolution of values will soon cause us to question the fairness and justice of many of our past and present policies. We are called to play the Good Samaritans on life's roadside, but that will only be an initial act. One day the whole Jericho road must be transformed so that men and women will not be beaten and robbed as they make their journey through life. True compassion is more than flinging a coin to a beggar. It understands that an edifice which produces beggars needs restructuring. A true revolution of values will soon look uneasily on the glaring contrast of poverty and wealth. With righteous indignation, it will look at thousands of working people displaced from their jobs with reduced income as a result of automation, while the profits of the employers remain intact, and say this is not just. It will look across the oceans and see individual capitalists of the West investing huge sums of money in Asia and Africa, only to take the profits out with no concern for the social betterment of the countries, and say this is not just. It will look at our alliance with the landed gentry of Latin America and say this is not just. A true revolution of values will lay hands on the world order and say a war, this way of settling differences, is not just. This business of burning human beings with napalm, of filling our nation's homes with orphans and widows, of injecting poisonous drugs of hate into the veins of peoples nominally humane, of sending men home from dark and bloody battlefields physically handicapped and psychologically deranged, cannot be reconciled with wisdom, justice, and love. A nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death. So what we must all see is that these are revolutionary times. All over the globe, men are revolting against old systems of exploitation, and out of the wombs of a frail world, new systems of justice and equality are being born. The shirtless and barefoot people of the earth are rising up as never before. The people who sat in darkness have seen a great light. We in the West must support these revolutions. It is a sad fact that because of comfort, complacency, a morbid fear of communism, and our proneness to adjust to injustice, the Western nations that initiated so much of the revolutionary spirit of the modern world have now become the arch anti-revolutionaries. And this has driven many to feel that only Marxism has the revolutionary spirit. Communism is a judgment. In a sense, communism is a judgment of our failure to make democracy real and to follow through on the revolutions that we initiated. Our only hope today lies in our ability to recapture the revolutionary spirit and go out into a sometimes hostile world, declaring eternal opposition to poverty, racism, and militarism. With this powerful commitment, we shall boldly challenge the status quo and unjust mores, and thereby speed the day when every valley shall be exalted, and every mountain and hill shall be made low, and the crooked places shall be made straight, and the rough places plain. May I say in conclusion that that is a need now more than ever before for men and women in our nation to be creatively maladjusted. As Mr. Davis said, and I say to you that I choose to be among the maladjusted. As my good friend Bill Coffin said, there are those who have criticized me, and many of you, for taking a stand against the war in Vietnam, and for seeking to say to the nation that the issues of civil rights cannot be separated from the issues of peace. I want to say to you tonight that I intend to keep these issues mixed because they are mixed. Somewhere we must see that justice is indivisible. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And I have fought now too long and too hard against segregated public accommodations to end up at this point in my life segregating my moral concern. And so let us stand in this convention knowing that on some positions, cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it politic? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right? And on some positions, it is necessary for the moral individual to take a stand that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular, but he must do it because it is right. And we say to our nation tonight, we say to our government, we even say to our FBI, we will not be harassed, We will not make a butchery of our conscience. We will not be intimidated, and we will be heard.
I love that speech. I take so much away from those words. And again, it's a very different picture of MLK than a lot of times is painted for us in school or some of the celebrations. And so I think it's important to recognize that side of his message and understand that that work is ongoing. As I wrote in the chat there, like he could pretty much have written that speech, which was 57 years ago. That could have been yesterday, right? We're still facing the same issues, and so I encourage you all to join me in being creatively maladjusted to this world, to the situation that's happening in our society right now, in our neighborhoods, in our community, and you're very welcome for sharing that. And yeah, happy MLK Day, y'all, and we'll talk soon.